Oh, we are live here at the Voice of College Football. Let me send out the tweets, send out the links. College football, let me. Hey, that's my voice.
Send out the tweets.
That's vertical.
Links. College
Ugh.
football, let me.
Hey, that's my voice.
Send out.
Gross. Let me. Please, God, I'm not tweeting the other link. Oh, gross. I saw two links tweet out, and I got two viewers, and I think both are me. Alrighty, and then one goes away, and then let me send this here. Alrighty, welcome to Missouri Tigers Live. As I think I got the Iowa State basketball game on. Put a blanket on. It's cold here in St. Louis, folks. It's like 30 degrees today. Like, this is nuts. Anyway, we are here to talk about Missouri Tigers and what I need to change that real quick. And what happened on Saturday. Of course, we're going to go through the normal game, but we're going to talk about what happened on Saturday. We're going to talk about next week's game against Mississippi State. Kind of the fallout of what happened on Saturday against Texas A&M. I don't have any family stuff to get to, so I will be here for a little while. And we'll preview Mississippi State. We'll talk about a couple other things, SEC notes, national notes, and then we'll get out of here. This is the 48th episode here of Missouri Tigers Live here at the Voice of College Football. This is the Voice of College Football, Missouri. Mizzou, of course, now coming off a pretty awful loss to Texas A&M, where they got punked in every sense of the word. There's no need to go over stats. There's no need to go over anything. What we need to talk about, and then I kind of want to bury this game, is, and this kind of overreaches a lot of different points. I want to talk about Eli Drakewitz. I know sometimes online people take things out of context, so let me start by saying this. Eli is a net positive for the Missouri Tigers. He has done a wonderful job at Mizzou. Mizzou wins the games it should. Yeah, I'm fighting my cat. Mizzou wins the games it should. It loses the games it probably should. He is a dogged recruiter. He's a wonderful social media presence. He is a net positive for Missouri. There are a lot of people. So, as I say, when I say what I'm about to say, please take that into consideration. I think Eli is a good football coach. I do think this offseason, because this season is going to finish like 7-5, 8-4, there is still an outside chance to 10 wins, and we'll talk about what they still have to play for here in just a moment, because this Eli thing is all encompassing of Saturday, of the future. Now that the season's, from a playoff perspective, is over, I do think if you go 7-5, 8-4, even with the injuries, I think this is a year where you can take a step back, reevaluate the program as the SEC moves to a 9-game schedule. You can reevaluate your special teams coach, who needs to go. You can reevaluate your offensive coordinator, who needs to go. Every position group. Again, I think Jacob Peeler does a really nice job with the receivers. Okay. I think the offensive line coach does a decent job. That might just be they need more talent. And that's what I said all offseason and last season. You can't build a great offensive line out of the portal. You have to draft. Good Lord. Recruit, develop, retain. They haven't really done that since Eli's been here. And I don't put that all at the feet of the offensive line coach or all at the feet of Eli. It's hard to get good offensive linemen to come to Mizzou. Now, you're going to have your outliers like Membu became a top 10 pick. Javon Foster was a very good player. Connor Tollison, very good college player. But you're not going to get elite offensive line play from Keegan Trost, who's had a nice year, but he's not elite. You're not going to get elite offensive line play from Curtis Peegler and some of these other guys. Caden Green was a rare find, very rare. A talent like that goes into the portal. I think this is a chance for this offseason is a chance for Eli to totally reevaluate his program. Yeah, they've done a really good job. They're again going to finish with 7, 8, 9 wins. Still have an outside chance at 10. You know, there are some people I've seen saying some silly things about Eli, like he needs to let go because Mizzou can't win the big game with him. Guys, they didn't really win the big game under Pinkel either. There's that stat going around that like he's never beaten a SEC team with a winning record. Guys, that's like most teams. They don't beat us. That's why SEC teams have winning records. Like that many SEC like if you really look at it, like not a lot of SEC teams go like 5-3. It's like 6-2 or 4-4. Or 7-1, 8-0, whatever. The SEC's good, man, and a lot of the good teams go to that record, and Mizzou just hasn't been one of them. And quite frankly, you can want for Mizzou to be better. You can want that. I want that. Dude, I do this show. I devote 2 hours of my life a week to the Missouri Tigers. And plus watching a football game and thinking and analyzing and breaking down and kind of chopping up what I want to talk about. It's okay to want more. I don't think it's entirely reasonable to expect more. Mizzou is recruiting at a level it's never recruited, and that's still a bottom 4 or 5 in the conference from a total talent level. They have one of the smaller stadiums. Now, the stadium I think is going to be a lot better next year. I think that's going to help the noise level. But it's not. No one's going to confuse Mizzou with LSU, Florida, Auburn, Texas A&M, Oklahoma when it's really going. And Missouri as a state just doesn't produce the high school talent that a Georgia does, Louisiana does. And part of that is the state of Missouri. The state of Georgia, the state of Louisiana, Florida, obviously, they are about college football. Like those are the things in those states. And Missouri, it's not it. We've got the Blues. And this is not like a cop-out. And I've talked about if you followed me on Twitter for a while, I said this with Mizzou basketball years ago when Mizzou basketball was struggling with attendance. And media members got really pissed at me because I said these things. But I'm like, look, for Mizzou football, you're competing with the Chiefs, who are in the midst of a dynasty. Texas, that's more of a pro crowd. I meant to leave out Texas. Like, they're not – no one's confused Texas with an elite atmosphere. Good atmosphere, certainly, but it's not elite. But if you're Mizzou football, you have to compete with – the Cardinals have used to make playoff runs. They don't really seem interested in doing that anymore. The Chiefs are in the midst of a dynasty, and for 7 years have been the best the best franchise in pro football. The Blues have been really good for a long time now, even though they kind of suck this year right now, but that could change. You're competing with the Royals, who have gone on close playoff runs and been good in recent years. There's a lot to compete with. You're not, and I know Georgia's got a ton of stuff too, but the football talent in Georgia is like focused to go to Georgia. It is like a prep school to go to the University of Georgia. Oh my goodness, Cats, knock it off. To play Georgia Bulldogs football. The state of Louisiana is a prep to play for the Louisiana Tigers. Missouri, we don't do that. A lot of our best talent goes elsewhere, and that's okay if you recruit elite talent from other states. And while Mizzou does a good job, it's not elite. So while I understand wanting more, you want Mizzou to compete for the playoff. You want Mizzou to win these types of games against top 5, top 10 teams. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that. And I see a lot of Mizzou fans on Twitter like, oh, Eli can't win the big games. Guys, Mizzou as a football program can't win big games. That's just who you are. I don't mean to be such a downer, but like this Saturday, like it really clicked for me. Like until some things change on a pretty massive level, this is kind of who you are. And I know Power Mizzou went off today about how like you're going to get into the playoff if you beat the teams you should beat and lose to the, you have a chance to the playoff. You beat the teams you should beat and you lose to the teams you should lose to. And I disagree. You're not, because now that the SEC is moving to 9 games, you're not going to play. The SEC East doesn't exist anymore. You're not going to get Kentucky, an awful Vanderbilt, South Carolina, who you're better than, and you're not getting Tennessee, who kind of ebbs and flows, or Florida that was down. A couple of those teams popped up. Like I'm thinking 2023, Tennessee was pretty good. Georgia was obviously great. Florida stunk. Vanderbilt stunk. Kentucky made a bowl game. They were okay. You're not getting that schedule anymore. You're going to play 9 SEC games. And yeah, you have to upset 2. And that's just to get to 9-3 potentially, or 10-2. And now I think 9-3 in a 9-game SEC will get you into the playoff more often than it won't. But I mean, that's just kind of where we are now. You're not getting and Mizzou's gotten a pretty, relative. Now it showed up tougher this year because Texas A&M is better than we thought they were going to be. Oklahoma was about as good as I thought they'd be. I thought they were going to be pretty good coming into the year. But if you go into next year thinking, Mizzou can waltz back to 8-9 games, even with all their losing, and Eli does a good job in the portal replacing what they lose. So I'm not too worried about the defense on that sense, because I think Eli will do a great job. But I mean, if you look at who they play in conference, how many of these teams can you automatically say you're better than? At Arkansas, yeah. At Mississippi State, yeah, definitely. Florida at home, probably. We'll see what they do with the new coach. But if it's like Lane, Kentucky, yeah. So that's what? 4 games maximum? You go to Georgia, you're not better than Georgia. You go play Oklahoma at home, you're not better. You're not going to be better than Oklahoma at a talent level. You get Texas at home, you're definitely not going to be better than Texas on a talent level. You get Texas A&M at home. They've punked you for 2 years in a row now. Just absolutely punked you. And 3 times in 5 years, they've punked you. Since Eli's gotten there, they've played A&M 3 times. No game has been close. And then you go to Ole Miss. And if Lane's still at Ole Miss, they're going to be better than you. So for Mizzou next year to get to 9 wins, you have to beat UAPB, Kansas, and Troy. They'll do that. You have to beat Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Kentucky. So that gets you to, 6? And then you have to beat 3 at Georgia, at Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida. And that's that's a reasonable schedule. That's not no one is oh God. That's reasonable. That's not a crazy SEC schedule. Okay, you want Mizzou to reload next year. Next year's a bit of a rebuild year. You want to play Zollers a little bit. Unfortunately, that's not how the sport works anymore. Okay, you go to 2027. You got Illinois State, San Diego State, and Illinois got bumped. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. So how many of these games are you automatically going to be? You think you're better? Arkansas? Sure. That's 1. Vanderbilt? I would agree, because I think Clark Lee will be gone. At South Carolina, we'll see what Beamer does, but that's 3. At Alabama, definitely not. LSU, definitely not. Auburn, who's their coach in 2027? Tennessee, at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, again, who's punked you 3 times in 5 years. That's 6 games you're definitely not going to get favored in. Things change, but from a talent level, Mizzou's is not going to be the favorite or be the better team 5 to 6 times a year in conference. It's just not how it's going to work now. So again, I understand Mizzou fans want more. I want more. I want this team to win something of significance. In football, it's just probably not going to happen. and I've mentioned this a million times. This is why this emphasis on the playoff is all that matters. This emphasis on the national championship drives me nuts. Mizzou football is not good enough to win a national title in its current state. And that's with Eli, who I think is a top 15 to 20 coach in the country. You could put a lot of coaches here and they aren't winning anything. Nick Saban, maybe. But Nick Saban is like the greatest coach of all time. Lane Kiffin wouldn't do better. And Lane Kiffin's winning 9 games a year at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is in a better spot than you are. And they also played a tougher schedule. It's difficult to really reiterate, I think. This is an off-season topic of like, what should the expectations for Mizzou be? Because you're not Kentucky. You're not Vanderbilt, and I know Vanderbilt's having a great year, but I want to see what they do when Clark Lee leaves, if Clark Lee leaves. Potentially like Tim Beck leaves, and obviously Pavia. I want to see what Vanderbilt looks like, because I think they kind of go back to what they have been. You're not Arkansas, even though I know the Tyson Chicken Man's trying to pour a lot of money into that program. You're not South Carolina. I think you have reasonably more expectations in South Carolina, mostly because you are the A school in your own state, whereas South Carolina is not. Although shout out to Missouri State for having a wonderful year. Ryan Beard should probably be getting some mention, not for like top jobs, not like SEC, Big Ten jobs, but like as a backfill guy. Like Golish leaves at South Florida. Maybe take a look at Alabama. That's just an example, but like take a look at Ryan Beard, like something like that. He's done a really damn good job in Springfield. So shout out to them. Good for them. But that's an offseason. Like, you're not Arkansas, you're not Kentucky, you're not Vanderbilt, where it's like, or Mississippi State, it's like, if we get to a bowl, yay. But like, what are the expectations? That's an offseason discussion, kind of when we see how this season plays out. And with the transfer portal, things change. But you can't be a transfer to portal team and win the national championship. Look, Ole Miss is a great story. They're a really good football team. They've had the benefit of a fairly easy schedule. They did knock out OU and Norman. That can't be overlooked. Their big wins seem to have been a bit overrated, like LSU. But they're not going to win the Natty. And you can't be a transfer portal heavy team and win the Natty. Like, if you look at the top programs in the country, Alabama, Georgia, even Texas A&M doesn't. I mean, they got guys out wide, and they've done a really nice job. But a lot of their O-line is internal. Ohio State. I mean, Indiana's another team that's going to give it a go. We talked about this the other day. I don't think Indiana can win the national title. They could. They're the team where if they win it, every program should like lift an eye up, because they do not have national championship profile in terms of talent level. And again, every team that's ever won the Natty since like 2003 we've kind of know the criteria for them to win the national championship. Same thing with basketball, except 2014 UConn. But every national champion, it's like crazy stats. It's like they have to be this and this and this, and then 2014 UConn is the exception. So that's probably more of an off-season discussion. Like, what should expectations be at the University of Missouri moving forward as we hit this 9-game SEC schedule? As far as the rest of this year, I gave Eli a lot of credit. Last year, when you got murdered by Bama and Texas A&M, it was very clear, okay, this is not a playoff team. South Carolina was a really good football team with a lot of momentum last year. They beat Texas A&M, the team that killed you. You went to Columbia. You were down. You got down by a couple scores pretty quickly, and then you battled back, and you took the lead late in the game. You should have probably won that football game. You gave up a late touchdown to Rocket Sanders, and that was a South Carolina team that had a legit case for the playoff. We talked about this the other day, or I think last show, or I forget who, or when you have these teams that have these dream seasons, you have to take advantage. And sometimes teams don't. I'm thinking of like 2023 Arizona. They lost a couple games in overtime, finished 10-3. They win a couple of those overtime games. They're not 11-1 in the Pac-12 title game. That South Carolina, like they should have beaten Bama. They should have beaten LSU. They got kind of housed by Ole Miss, but still 11-1. And you went in there and you you had a great effort, and you should have won the football game, and you didn't. And then you played Mississippi State on the road, a game you could have dropped, and you didn't. And you played Arkansas, and you got them at home, and you finished the season, and you won a bowl game against Iowa. Bowl games are mostly meaningless. So Eli's done a really good job of, even when there's nothing to play for, playing for something. We'll see what happens. Mississippi State does have a really bad run defense. We'll get into Mississippi State here in a minute. And they have a lot of injuries. So we'll see. But there's, Mizzou's never won 10 games 3 straight years. So this would be a really big accomplishment. And OU is not unbeatable, even for how this Mizzou team is currently constructed. OU is not unbeatable. It's going to be up to this staff to get these guys playing and motivated. Because all these games are also losable, and then you're 6-6, and we got some real issues here. You can't go 6-6. And then we'll get to the offseason, and we'll see what happens. Because they're not going to make the playoff, that Sunday, Eli could take the job somewhere else. I was reading Penn State's board earlier. Penn State, their guys seem to think Eli's the favorite for the job, but they also realize and have said Missouri is going to do whatever they can to keep Drink in Columbia, as they should. So we'll see what happens. It's gonna be a really interesting offseason for the Missouri Tigers. This is one of the bigger off seasons in program history. What do you? Okay, you had a great 2.5-year run. Could still be considered a great 3-year run if you finish strong and finish 9-4, 10-3, whatever. What do you do now that everything's going to get tougher for programs of your stature? I don't understand why the SEC caved to the Big Ten's demand for 9 conference games. A third of the Big Ten doesn't care about football. Maryland doesn't care. Rutgers doesn't care. Michigan State doesn't seem to care anymore. I thought Jonathan Smith was a good hire, but still. Purdue doesn't care. Indiana luck boxed their way into the best coach in the damn sport, and now they care. But that didn't happen. We'll see what happens down the road. But Wisconsin is confusing. I think they care. They just don't know how to care. Why you caved to that, I don't. Northwestern doesn't care. I don't know why you caved to that, but whatever. You're here with Missouri Tigers Live. That's kind of my spiel about Eli and kind of the state of the program heading into the final quarter of the season. You can connect with the Voice of College Football on Twitter and Instagram. This is Missouri Tigers Live. Guys, like and subscribe. Share if you have Missouri Tiger fans. I know the show Saturday was a little short. I had some family stuff. Full disclosure, my grandfather's having some health issues. But they did, to be fair, they didn't, and then they beat Washington. So I wonder if some of the pressure. I think Fickell's a good coach. Some of that pressure being let off kind of makes them play better. He's also gotten rotten luck with a schedule. They've had the toughest schedule in the country for 2 straight years, and every quarterback he's gotten hurt. So I would have fired him, but I kind of understand. Plus, we can talk about this in national notes. We'll cover it now. Plus, if you're Wisconsin, I think this is kind of a perfect situation. This is a good situation for you. You can keep Fickell for another year. If he turns it around, you can keep Luke Fickell because Luke Fickell is a good football coach. Or Jason Eck gets another year in New Mexico to kind of keep churning, get a little more experience as a head football coach, and then you just hire Jason Eck. That was the guy everybody said they were going to hire when it was clear Fickell was going to get fired. He's not. I kind of understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But like and subscribe, guys. We're here. We're going to talk. We're going to talk college. We're going to talk Mizzou. It doesn't matter if they go 6-6. Hell, if they go 6-6, there's going to be a lot to talk about going into next year. And with everything, they're losing their entire defensive line. They're keeping Trotter, Rodriguez, and Beasley will be back at linebacker. They're going to lose Newsome, but that's okay. Although I thought he played pretty well Saturday. They're going to lose their entire secondary outside of Santana Banner and Marvin Burks. Oh, dear God. It's going to be an interesting offseason for Mizzou. So hang around as we get into Mississippi State. Mississippi State comes in at 5-5. So this is a big game. They see a vulnerable Mizzou team. And if they win, they can get to a bowl. which before the season would have been crazy to me because I had him at like 3-9. So a lot of credit goes to Jeff Lebby. It looks there's a couple injury updates. Blake Shapen did not practice today. He exited the third quarter against Georgia. He was cleared, but he would have been very limited. So he's going to come in and he's going to be hurt. Even if he plays, he's not going to be at 100%. And Blake Shapen is having a nice season. He's completing 65% of his touchdown passes, 2,234 yards, 15 touchdowns, 8.39 average air yards per attempt. That's not bad. Their backup is Kamario Taylor. Nothing to write home about this season. 11 for 19, three scores. But he has carried the ball 34 times for 200 yards. So he's definitely more of a dual threat type quarterback. Luke Krumanoke is their other backup, transfer from Florida State. Kid I thought was really talented, and Florida State, just because they're Florida State right now, he's 2 for 4 for 50 yards. So Kamario Taylor could present some problems for this Mizzou defense because he does have the ability to run the football. Against Georgia, he carried the ball 12 times for 53 yards. At Arkansas, 6 times for 55 yards. He is a freshman quarterback, so they lost Van Buren to the portal. He's now at LSU, where they stashed him behind Nussmeier. Offensively, their run game comes behind. Is Fluff Bothwell playing? Another guy not playing is Isaac Smith, who leads the tackles. He's third on the team in tackles with 51. He did miss the Texas A&M game, 1 sack, 1 interception. He's one of the leaders of that defense. So we'll see what happens there. I know they're dealing with a bunch of injuries, which is unfortunate because as they head to the final part of their season, they got Mizzou this weekend, and he will play. With all my family stuff going on, I didn't watch as much college football as I normally do. So I apologize for that, for not being as well educated as I normally try to be. But I don't really pay attention a lot to this stuff. But yeah, he 9 carries for 44 yards. That's where their run game goes through Fluff, and he was a heady pickup in the portal too. A lot of people gave Mizzou a lot of credit for getting Ahmad Hardy. As they should. He's over 1,000 yards for the season. Although for some reason they refuse to use him. I will say I think some of that's a bit overblown, especially Saturday. Guys, Jamal Roberts was better. Like, he was just playing better, and he's a better pass protector than Hardy is as well. But the thing that drove me nuts was you never had like 2 tight ends in the game. But it is what it is. That game's done and go. You have to. Davian Booth, pretty good player as well. He has 7 touchdowns. He's carried the ball 123 times, 513 yards. Good heavens! At a receiver position, Brendan Thompson leads the SEC in receiving, and Anthony Evans leads them in receptions. They have a pretty active passing attack. I don't understand how bad they were. After watching Kevin Coleman this year and Mario Craver, I do not understand why Mississippi State is as bad as they've been. That's really crazy to me, or as bad as they were last year, but kind of is what it is. It's not a good defense. Their run defense is pretty atrocious. Mizzou, if they play hard, if they're still in it, they should be able to pound the football with Roberts, Hardy. I don't think Marquise Davis has burned his red shirt. So, and obviously you're not letting Matt Zollers run. So, as far as a prediction, I will predict Mizzou to win this game. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I'm going to say something like 23-16, 23-17, somewhere in there, kind of a one-possession game. Because this is going to be a big one for Mississippi State. They have a bye week, and then they host Ole Miss, which is that's a wouldn't it be funny. Mississippi State, look, that win over Arizona State kind of changed things. I was curious if they were going to fire Jeff Lebby after year 2, and then they also get a win over Arkansas. Excuse me. It's a pretty decent football team. They're not great. No one's going to confuse them with an elite team, but they do average 32 points a game. Jeff Lebby, they should have beaten Texas, if we're being quite honest. They had a real shot to beat Florida. They won all their non-cons. They had a real shot to beat Tennessee. Like, if this is not going to be a game even with Bo, this was not a game. As the season has progressed, I was like, oh, Mizzou's going to like I was before the season. Mizzou's going to crush them. It's an alarming football game for a lot of reasons. We'll see what Mizzou does. We'll see how they rebound after 2 losses. And let's face it, this program needs some momentum right now. You've played 3 games in 4 weeks where you were a premier game. Last week against Texas A&M, not so much. But Vanderbilt and Alabama, you were a premier game. You were talked about on every podcast, every show was talking about the Missouri Tigers versus whoever, and you've lost them all. What's going to happen this week? What's going to happen? We'll see. We'll see. I'm curious. I am curious. I'm not going to pick Mississippi State to win, but it would not surprise me. I think Mississippi State's not a bad team. They throw the ball a lot. If it's true freshman quarterback versus true freshman quarterback, like if Shapen can't go, you have no excuse. If you lose this game, then you need to fire like everybody, not named Eli, because that would be a horrific loss. Mizzou's a 7.5-point favorite as of right now. The game will kick off at 6:45 on the SEC network. I, of course, will be here live after the show, after the game. I'll be watching that. Georgia Tech. It's actually a pretty good slate of games. I'll be watching that in Georgia, Texas, Utah, Baylor. Not be watching Florida Ole Miss, but Iowa, USC is also a pretty fun game. So, yeah. If you're Mizzou, you have to win this game. Get to 7. It kind of lays your floor at 7. Every win now is kind of where your floor is, and the floor can't be 6-6. So we'll go from there. I think that's all I wanted to talk about from Mizzou. Now we've talked for 55 minutes and 2 days basically about the program. This is Missouri Tigers Live for the Voice of College Football. We're about to head off into SEC and national notes. Again, I really apologies for the short show Saturday. Again, family health issues right now, just not a pleasant time in life. So, again, I really want to apologize, and I'll leave it there. I'm not going to get too much into my personal life. Going into the SEC notes, Bama. I did watch a lot of that game. What in the hell is going on? That Bama offense, that's getting a little concerning. We talked about it when they played Mizzou, that their run game just was not going, and it's still not really going. I mean, Jam Miller, 8 carries for 13 yards. Daniel Hill, 7 carries for 21 yards. And I think and LSU has a good defense. I think they let go of the rope a little bit against Texas A&M, and then everybody gets up because it's Alabama. It's a huge rivalry. Ty Simpson wasn't that great. They need to get Ryan Williams going because they cannot win the national title unless Ryan Williams gets moving. So a concerning game for them. Vanderbilt, guys, this is another point on Kirby Moore. Auburn, who just fired their coach because of how bad his offense was, put up 38 points with Ashton Daniels in Nashville. Ashton Daniels went 31 of 44 for 353 and 2 touchdowns. He also ran 18 times for 89 yards for what it's worth. Cam Coleman, 10 for 143. Eric Singleton, 11 for 102. You don't have Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton. You just don't. You can like the Mizzou receivers way more than I do and admit that you do not have 2 draft picks like that. That should really piss you off that Auburn went in there with the guy that wasn't supposed to start at the beginning of the year. Like, I know Bo got hurt, but offense wasn't exactly moving the ball before that. But a lot of credit has to go to Pavia. He looked exhausted towards the end of that game. But he 25 for 33 for 377, 3 touchdowns, also got 112 yards on the ground, damn near 500 yards by himself. So credit to him for that. Eli Stowers, maybe the best tight end in the country. And Kentucky, hey, Cutter Boley looks pretty good. He's getting better, and that should really excite Kentucky fans because I don't think Mark Stoops is going to be leaving next year. But 18 to 23 for $168, 2 touchdowns. There's something to be said for Mark balance at the end of the year. They got Tennessee Tech, so they're going to win that. Then they need to win one of at Vandy or at Louisville. They can win one of those games, and then they get to a bowl. And if you're Kentucky and you go 6-6, man, like that should be celebrated. This week in the SEC, South Carolina goes to Texas A&M. Who cares? Arkansas goes to LSU. Arkansas maybe Petrino's last shot at really getting this job. They got if you lose this one, you got Texas. You're at max. You're finishing with 3 wins because maybe you beat Mizzou, but you can't keep Petrino if he doesn't win a football game. Like aforementioned, Tennessee Tech, Kentucky. Game of the day is Oklahoma at Alabama. Boy, talk about if you're OU, what a tough spot. Because if you win this game, you're probably in. Because I don't think if you win this game, you're not losing to Mizzou or LSU. If you lose this game, I like Texas. I still think you have a shot at 9-3, but I wouldn't get your hopes up. We all know the ACC is going to have one bid. The Big 12 is probably going to have one bid. Notre Dame's probably getting a bid, although that game against Pittsburgh this weekend is interesting. Pitt hasn't lost a game since they switched quarterbacks. So that's 9 spots for the Big Ten and the SEC. We know Indiana's going to make it. Ohio State's going to make it. Oregon's probably going to make it. So that leaves 5 spots for the SEC and USC if USC can make a run. So OU has a chance, but this is a huge football game. And same with Texas, Georgia. If Texas can win that game, they're in. Probably, I would think. It's just going to kind of see how it goes, but really, really interesting weekend in the SEC. And on a national perspective, this past week, like I said, didn't watch as much as I normally like to. I shouted out Missouri State earlier. The fake punt from Lincoln Riley was awesome. Shout out to Savior Circuit 2022 Savior Washington football, Sam Horde. Tulane, great win, puts USF and James Madison in a really good spot. Indiana, look, that was a game effort from Penn State, and you went on the road and you got to win against another program that has elite talent. They just haven't put it all together this year. And Mendoza, that catch to end the game when Gus Johnson was being obnoxious was maybe the catch of the year. Unbelievable from Indiana. And now they finish up. I keep hearing this with some teams too, like, oh, they aren't as good on the road. Nobody's as good on the road. They finish up with Wisconsin and Purdue. They should win both of those games. They will be 12-0 heading into the Big Ten title game. So congrats to them. Texas Tech, man, we talked all offseason about how I think there's only like a max of 18 programs that can win a natty. Texas Tech is going to quickly appear on that list in a couple of years if they keep recruiting and, let's be fair, throwing money like they do. But that's what it takes. And they have an NFL defensive line. They don't let you run the football. Their offense worries me. I don't think it's that good, but that defense is legit. So credit to Texas Tech. They're going to win the Big 12. They're going to get the Big 12's auto bid. Because they're really damn good. They got UCF and then they go to West Virginia. They're not going to lose either of those games. 11-1. They'll play whoever in the Big 12 title game and probably get a win there. Oregon survives at Iowa. I know a lot of people got mad at Oregon. They're like, oh, they're overrated, frauds. Guys, they were missing like their top 4 weapons. And I think some of them are supposed to be healthy coming up. They need to be. Look, that's a hard. Indiana barely won there. They got Minnesota on Friday. They should win that game. Then they have 8 days off to prepare for USC and at Washington. Both losable games. I said Oregon's likely to make it. I'm not sure they're not a lock. Ohio State is a lock. Texas A&M is a lock. Indiana is a lock. So we'll see. Notre Dame, they haven't played a real team in a month. They've played 3 real games all year. They got a real game Saturday. I don't care what the final score ends up being. That's a game. 11 a.m. at Pitt. That is truly a tough game. That will not be a game that anybody can take lightly. Their last 2, Syracuse, Notre Dame, and Stanford, yes. But if Notre Dame wins this game by a lot of points, they deserve a lot of credit. If they win it all, they deserve credit. They're going on a road placing a Pitt team that I think is pretty good. So we'll see what happens there Saturday morning. The ACC is garbage. Wake Forest. If Eli were to leave, I wouldn't hate calling Jake Dicker. He's done a really nice job, and his defense has done a really nice. And Scotty Hazelton, who was a disaster at Michigan State when in the Mel Tucker era, has done a really nice job. They knock out Virginia. Virginia can still win the ACC, get like the 12 seed. That's what they're going to get, man. Like the ACC is so bad. And speaking of the ACC, Cal loses or beats Louisville. Jeff Braun basically called out his entire coaching staff and Miller Moss in the post game. Yeah, awful. Speaking of awful, Colorado, Juju Lewis looked pretty good. He has to look pretty good. Otherwise, they should probably let go of Dion, but 22 of 35, 2 touchdowns and 300 yards. They should probably let go of Dion because you had the 4-8 year. They're going to go, what are they? They won 3 games this year. Yeah, they're 3-7. So they're going to go like, who do they got left? They got Arizona State. They could win that one, and they go to Kansas State. They're going to finish like 4-8 again. So 4-8, really good season last year with a Heisman winner. And no like Big 12 title, never really a threat for the Big 12 title. Maryland should fire Mike Loxley. They're not going to, but they should. The ACC is terrible, part 3. UConn beats Duke. Jim Mora should get a statue in stores for what he's done. That man is unbelievable. And if you're a program like a Wisconsin or somebody that kind of needs to get things stabilized, Jim Mora would be a damn good hire. They're going to win 9 games again. UConn. And I see one UMass fan on my Twitter timeline all the time. And he's like, don't tell me it can't be done. Because UConn actually does have a really nice atmosphere going right now. And they just beat Duke at home. They're going to be 9. They could be 9-3 again. Like Jim Mora has done the Lord's work with that program. This is kind of a negative thing for Mizzou. Kansas loses to Arizona. Guys, Kansas might not make a bowl. Oh, I still have SEC notes on. Oops. Kansas might not make a bowl. They go to Iowa State, and then they play Utah. They have to win one of those 2 games to make a bowl game. I don't think they're going to. So will Mizzou have a win over a bowl team at season's end? It doesn't really look like it. Because Mississippi State, if they lose to Mizzou, is probably not making a bowl. Arkansas is not making a bowl. South Carolina is probably not making a bowl. Auburn's not going to make a bowl. Louisiana is not making a bowl. And who else did you play? Oh, UMass is obviously not making a bowl game. So, Iowa State beats up TCU. They survive. TCU, Sonny Dykes. You played a natty, man. Like, that deserves all the credit in the world, but holy cow. Bill Belichick gets another win. Like, North Carolina, sneaky for the last few weeks, has played pretty good football. Like, they came really close to beating Cal, who's a decent team. They should have beaten they should have beaten Virginia. They beat Syracuse, they beat Stanford, and now look, they need to win 2 of at Wake Forest, Duke, at NC State. I don't think they will, but for the start they have, relative to the start they have, getting to 5 wins isn't the end of the world. It's still not good because that schedule is pretty garbage and the ACC sucks, and you're paying Bill Belichick more than you paid Matt Brown to get worse results. But you give credit where credit's due. They've rebounded pretty nicely there. They're just playing out the rope, right? Like Mike Norvell's getting fired. Clemson, Dabo made a comment like maybe we'll have an off year and go to a bowl, not miss and only go 6-6 or 7-5. They'll beat Furman. They got to win at Louisville or at South Carolina to make a bowl. That'll be interesting. Florida, sort of interesting. Florida State has to win 2 of Virginia Tech, at NC State, at Florida to make a bowl. I actually think they will. Credit to Nebraska for their win at UCLA. They're 7-3. And then they go to Penn State. That's a winnable game, and they got Iowa, and Iowa I think is pretty good, but that's winnable. If they can win one of the 2, finish 8-4, and get to a decent bowl game, like Matt Rule deserves a ton of credit. There's a reason why I know Matt Rule's record against ranked teams. Matt Rule's a good coach. He's a good college football coach. He may not be amazing, but you can feel with Nebraska. This is the first time in a long time that I can say this, even when people were trying to hype up the Scott Frost era. This is the first time you can legitimately feel momentum building for Nebraska from an on-the-field results perspective. They're playing good football. They're playing better football. They're playing tough. They're playing hard-nosed. They're not making a ton of mistakes. They're not screwing things up. I think it's I think you can, I don't know if next year's the year where they break through and become a more of a ranked level team, a consistently ranked level team. Probably has to be with Raiola, but you can feel the momentum for that program, which sucks because I hate them, but they've been so bad for so long. Kind of is what it is. As far as this week goes, Clemson, Louisville, and Minnesota, Oregon on Friday night. That's interesting. I like both those games. Minnesota's not a pushover. At 11 a.m., I can already tell you Pitt, Notre Dame is going to be on TV1. I'm really interested by that game. And on TV2, you're probably going to have Arizona, Cincinnati is interesting, and Michigan, Northwestern. Northwestern plays hard. Michigan can't throw the football. How will they handle the Michigan run game remains to be seen. We'll see. In the afternoon, as you get more into the afternoon slate, North Texas goes to UAB, so they're not going to. Of course, we talked about Oklahoma, Alabama. Not really interested in UCF, Texas Tech. Virginia, Duke is kind of a huge game for the ACC title odds. NC State can score. I like Hollywood Smothers, obviously. CJ Bailey's a lot of fun. They can put up points, and Miami can't. That's an interesting game. Miami's a 15.5-point favorite. I think Miami will win, but it's an interesting game. I also wonder if Dave Doran's kind of on his way out at NC State, and if these guys will play hard to finish strong for him. They do have Florida State, North Carolina at home over the next couple of weeks. All three of these games are those two games are winnable. It's 7-5. It's not a bad football team. Iowa, USC. Iowa's eliminated from the playoff. Can they eliminate USC? I think USC is a pretty good football team, though. I think Lincoln's done a really nice job. I think we were all reminded, oh, yeah, Lincoln's a good coach. It just took a couple years to transition once he didn't have – he did have Caleb Williams the 1 year. He might not be an amazing coach, but he's still a pretty good coach. Penn State, Michigan State. One team's already fired their coach. The other one's going to fire their coach. James Madison's going to look to dominate App State as they continue to try to plow through that playoff spot. Memphis, East Carolina is interesting for the AAC. East Carolina is a favorite in that game. We already talked about North Carolina, Wake Forest, Utah, Baylor. If Utah has any hope for the playoff, they have to crush Baylor. You have to win that game by 20 plus. And then Purdue, Washington, Virginia Tech, Florida State. The night slate really is Georgia, Texas. If you're not a Mizzou fan, obviously, and then Boise State, San Diego State at 9:30 is super intriguing as well. And TCU, BYU. How does BYU respond to getting kind of pummeled by the Red Raiders? So it's an interesting slate it's the final quarter of the year, so enjoy it while it's here, and then it's more on to college basketball. So. Thank you so much for turning into Missouri Tigers Live. I'm Zach Albermilius. I'll be here Saturday night late. It is a late game, of course, so it'll be a late show, which I don't always love, but kind of is what it is at this point. So thanks for tuning in. I know it was a bit of a downer talking about some of the Mizzou stuff, but it kind of is what it is. So you all have a wonderful night. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your college football, your NFL football, your hockey, if that's what you're into, the start of college basketball. I think tomorrow is a pretty fun slate of college basketball. And I will see you guys on Saturday and then next Monday. So MIZ, still a lot to play for. The playoff dream is dead, but there still is a lot to play for. So go Tigers, and